The city was unnaturally quiet that night. Streetlights flickered against the empty sidewalks as Samir's car hummed through the darkness. His chest tightened with each block he drove, the strange message glowing on his phone beside him. He didn't have an address, only a pin dropped at the edge of town. It led to a place he had never dared to go, an abandoned railway station that had been shut down years ago. He parked, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in silence. Every instinct screamed that this was foolish. He had work in the morning, a daughter to wake for school, bills to pay. But underneath the logic was a deeper pull, the voice of a father who knew what desperation sounded like. The air was heavy with rust and damp concrete as he stepped out. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous emptiness of the old station. For a moment, he thought he had been tricked. Then, from the far corner, he heard it, a faint whimper, like a child trying not to cry. "Hello." Samir's voice cracked against the silence. No answer, only the sound of someone shifting, cautious, afraid. He followed the noise, heart pounding, until he saw her, a girl, maybe 17, curled up against the wall. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt, her hands trembling as she hugged her knees. She flinched when she saw him, like a wild animal cornered. Are you the one who got my message?" she whispered. Samir nodded slowly, keeping his distance. "Yes, my name's Samir. You're safe now. Can you tell me what happened?" Her eyes darted to the shadows behind him. "They're looking for me. Please, you can't let them find me." Before Samir could ask who they were, a distant sound tore through the night, the crunch of tires rolling over gravel. Headlights cut across the broken windows, flooding the station with harsh white light. The girl shrank back, her fingers clutching at Samir's sleeve. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling, "don't let them take me back." Samir's mind spun. He had no idea who she was, what danger she carried, or what kind of trouble he was walking into. All he knew was the way her voice cracked, the way her fear mirrored the helpless cries he had once heard from his own daughter when nightmares shook her awake. And in that instant, a decision burned clear in his chest. Whoever they were, whoever she was, Samir wasn't leaving her behind. Samir's pulse quickened as the headlights swept across the ruined walls of the station. He grabbed the girl's hand without thinking. "We need to move. Now." Her grip was icy cold, but desperate. She let him pull her deeper into the shadows, weaving past rusted benches and broken glass. They crouched behind an old ticket booth just as the squeal of brakes split the air. A car door slammed, then another. Footsteps, heavy, confident. Not the footsteps of rescuers, but hunters. Samir held his breath, every muscle tense. He could hear men talking outside. Their voices were low, harsh, almost careless. She couldn't have gotten far. "Check inside. The boss wants her back before sunrise." The girl shivered against him. Samir leaned closer, whispering, "Who are they? Why are they after you?" Her eyes glistened with tears she couldn't control. "Because I know something I wasn't supposed to find out. They said if I talked, if I told anyone, they'd make me disappear like they did to—" She bit her lip hard, silencing herself. Samir felt a chill. He didn't know what kind of mess this was, but it was darker than anything he had imagined when he left his apartment. He wanted to press her for answers, but the crunch of boots entering the station cut him off. Two shadows stretched across the floor. Flashlights swept the darkness, piercing the corners. Samir's heart hammered in his ears. He hadn't been this close to danger since never, not like this. He was just an ordinary man, a mechanic who fixed cars and packed school lunches. He wasn't built for this. And yet, the girl's trembling hand clutching his sleeve felt like an anchor. He thought of his daughter asleep at home, trusting him to keep the world safe. He couldn't let this child, because that's what she was, barely more than a child, be dragged away by faceless men in the night. One of the flashlights skimmed dangerously close. Samir pulled the girl lower, pressing her against the booth's cracked wooden panels. He prayed the pounding of his heart wasn't loud enough to give them away. Then a voice barked from outside. "Nothing in here. Try the other side." The beams shifted. The footsteps retreated. Doors slammed. The engine roared to life. Only when the car disappeared into the distance did Samir let himself breathe again. The girl was still clutching his arm, nails digging through his sleeve. "It's not safe here," he said quietly. "You need to come with me." She hesitated. Fear and mistrust warred in her eyes. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Samir swallowed. He didn't have an easy answer. He didn't know her, didn't know what she carried, didn't even know her name. But he knew that leaving her alone here would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Because someone sent me that message," he finally said. "And maybe it was an accident, maybe it wasn't. But if I walk away now, I'll never forgive myself." The girl blinked rapidly, as if holding back fresh tears. Finally, she whispered, "My name's Layla." Samir offered a hand, steady this time. "Come on, Layla. Let's get you out of here." And in that quiet moment, without realizing it, he crossed the line. He wasn't just helping a stranger anymore. He was stepping into a story that would change everything for both of them. The night air bit at their skin as Samir led Layla out of the abandoned station. His old sedan sat waiting at the curb, plain and unremarkable, the kind of car no one would notice. He opened the passenger door, but she froze, glancing around nervously as though shadows themselves might grab her. "It's okay," Samir said gently. "You'll be safe." Her voice was barely a whisper. "That's what my uncle said before he locked me in a room for 2 days." The words sank into Samir like stones. Whoever these men were, they weren't strangers. This girl's nightmare was bound to her own blood. "Layla," he said firmly, "I don't know what's going on, but you're not going back there. Not tonight." For a moment, she searched his face, as if testing whether his promise was real. Then she climbed into the seat, folding her arms tight against her chest. Samir slid behind the wheel and pulled away, his headlights cutting through the endless dark road. They drove in silence, the only sound the steady hum of the engine. Finally, Layla spoke. "You shouldn't help me. If they find out, they'll come after you too." Samir kept his eyes on the road. "Then let them. I've faced worse." It wasn't entirely true. He had faced grief, yes, the kind that ripped a hole in his chest when his wife passed away 3 years ago. He had faced sleepless nights, the crushing weight of bills, and the fear of failing as a father. But men in the shadows, threats of violence, this was different. And yet, sitting beside him, Layla reminded him so much of his daughter that he couldn't imagine doing anything else. "Do you have anyone you trust?" he asked. She shook her head. "No one left. My parents, they're gone. My uncle took everything after they died. He thinks no one will believe me if I speak out. But I know what he's hiding." Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with something sharper than fear, anger. "He's been laundering money, using our family's business. I found the files. He thought he deleted them, but I saved copies. That's why he wants me back. If I talk, his empire collapses." Samir exhaled slowly. This was no ordinary runaway. This was a girl who carried proof that could ruin powerful men. And now, by pure accident, or fate, she had landed in his care. "Then we make sure your voice doesn't get silenced," Samir said quietly. Layla blinked at him, almost stunned. "Why are you like this? Why do you care?" Samir tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Because once I needed someone to care, and no one did. I won't let that happen to you." The road stretched on, the city lights fading into the distance. Samir considered taking her to the police, but a cold thought struck him. What if they were already compromised? Men with money and influence could bend the law, twist it until it snapped. He needed time to think, to plan. Finally, he turned onto a quiet street lined with modest apartment buildings. He parked and glanced at her. "For now, you'll stay with me and my daughter. It's not fancy, but it's safe." Her eyes widened. "You'd let me stay with you?" Samir hesitated. He had promised himself long ago never to bring strangers into his daughter's world. But looking at Layla, exhausted, broken, yet still fighting, he knew he couldn't send her back into the night. "I'm not saying forever," he said, "just until I figure out how to keep you safe." For the first time, a flicker of relief crossed her face. She nodded. "Thank you." As they climbed the narrow stairs to his small apartment, Samir's mind raced. He had no plan, no guarantee this wouldn't explode at his face. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The moment he answered that midnight message, his ordinary life was gone. and in its place was something far more dangerous, and perhaps far more meaningful. The apartment was small, barely 2 bedrooms with walls that carried the faint smell of old paint and cooking spices. But to Samir, it was home, and more importantly, it was where his daughter felt safe. As he unlocked the door, he glanced at Layla. "I need you to stay quiet. My daughter's asleep." Layla nodded, shrinking into herself, as though even the warmth of this modest home was something she wasn't allowed to touch. Inside, the living room lamp glowed dimly, casting a soft light over scattered toys and a half-finished puzzle on the table. Samir's daughter, Aisha, had begged him to help finish it before bed. Guilt pricked him. He had promised. But tonight fate had written other plans. Layla's gaze lingered on the puzzle. "She's young. 7, Samir said softly, hanging his jacket. "Her name's Aisha. She's all I've got." Something in Layla's eyes shifted. Sadness, envy, maybe both. She ran her fingers over the puzzle pieces, as though trying to remember what it felt like to be a child again, safe enough to play. Samir poured her a glass of water and handed it over. "You should rest. You're safe here, at least for tonight." But rest was a luxury neither of them would get, because just before dawn, a sharp knock rattled the door. 3 knocks, measured, deliberate. Not a neighbor, not a friend. Samir's breath caught. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Layla to stay quiet. He tiptoed to Aisha's room and peeked inside. She was still asleep, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. The knocks came again, louder this time. "Mr. Samir Khan," a voice called. Too calm, too professional. "We'd like to ask you a few questions." Layla's face went white. She shook her head violently, whispering, "It's them. They found us." Samir's mind raced. He couldn't open that door, not without exposing her. But if he stayed silent, they might break it down anyway. He whispered urgently to Layla, "Go. Hide in Aisha's closet. Don't make a sound." Layla hesitated, then obeyed, slipping into the small bedroom and closing the door behind her. Samir drew a steadying breath before unlocking the front door. 2 men in plain suits stood outside, their expressions unreadable. Badges flashed briefly, too quickly to confirm authenticity. "Mr. Khan," one of them said smoothly, "we're with the Financial Crimes Unit. We've received reports that you may be harboring someone connected to an ongoing investigation." Samir feigned confusion. "What are you talking about? It's 5 in the morning. I got a kid sleeping inside." The taller man's gaze flicked past him into the apartment. "We just need to take a quick look. Routine procedure." Samir's stomach nodded. If they got inside, Layla's hiding place would be exposed in seconds. He forced a tired laugh. "At this hour? Look, I'm a mechanic, not a criminal. Whatever this is, you've got the wrong guy." The shorter man leaned in, lowering his voice. "Mr. Khan, let us in, and this ends quietly. Refuse, and things get complicated." For a heartbeat, Samir considered it. He could wash his hands of this, hand the girl over, and protect his own family. No one would blame him. But then he thought of Layla's trembling voice, the way she had clung to him in that station, begging not to be taken back. He thought of Aisha. What kind of father would he be if he taught her that turning away from someone in need was acceptable? "No," Samir said firmly. "Not without a warrant." A dangerous silence stretched. The taller man's eyes hardened. "We'll be back," he said flatly, before the two turned and walked down the hall. Samir shut the door, his hands trembling. He leaned against it, trying to steady his breath. The bedroom door creaked, and Layla emerged, her face pale. "They won't stop. You know that, right? They'll come again." Samir nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready." Layla's voice broke. "Why are you risking everything for me? Your daughter, your life, it could all be destroyed." Samir looked at her, his expression steady now. "Because sometimes doing nothing is more dangerous than doing something. And because," he hesitated, then finished, "because I believe you. That's enough." For the first time since meeting him, Layla's lips trembled into something close to a smile. Small, fragile, but real. Still, the weight of danger hung thick in the room. Samir knew the choice he had made had set him on a path that could not be undone. The men would return. The lies would unravel. And sooner or later, He would have to decide just how much he was willing to sacrifice to keep her safe. The days that followed were a blur of whispers, shadows, and fear. Samir went to work as if nothing had changed, fixing cars with grease-stained hands. But his mind was always racing. At home, Layla stayed hidden, teaching Aisha how to piece together puzzles and braid dolls' hair. Slowly, in the cracks of danger, something unexpected grew, a fragile sense of family. But peace never lasts long when powerful men are watching. It was a Thursday evening when it happened. Samir came home to find the apartment door ajar. His heart plummeted. He rushed inside. Aisha's toys scattered on the floor, Layla's bag gone. And then, on the table, a note scribbled in shaky handwriting. Don't follow. They'll hurt her. Protect your daughter. For a moment, the world tilted. He could let it end here. Pretend she had walked out on her own. Protect Aisha and retreat back into the life he had before. But Samir knew better. Layla had been taken, and if he stayed silent, he would be complicit in her disappearance. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered. A cold voice sneered on the other end. You should have stayed out of this, Mr. Khan. She belongs with us. Forget her, or you'll regret it. Samir's grip tightened around the phone. No, he said, his voice low but unshakable. She belongs with herself, and I'm not forgetting anything. That night, for the second time, he left his daughter sleeping under the care of a trusted neighbor. He didn't know what awaited him, only that he couldn't let Layla face it alone. What happened next wasn't neat, wasn't cinematic. It was messy, dangerous, full of close calls and moments where Samir wondered if he was out of his depth. But in the end, truth has a way of clawing its way into the light. The files Layla had hidden reached the right hands, hands that couldn't be bought. Her uncle's empire collapsed under the weight of his own corruption. Months later, the world looked different. Samir's life hadn't turned into some fairy tale. He was still a mechanic. He still worried about bills. But his apartment wasn't filled with silence anymore. Aisha laughed louder these days, and sometimes when Layla sat with him at dinner, the ache in Samir's chest, the one that had lingered since losing his wife, softened just a little. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the city lights, Layla turned to him. Funny, isn't it? She whispered. One wrong message saved me. Samir smiled, his gaze steady on her. No, Layla, it wasn't wrong. It was meant to find me. And that was how an ordinary man, woken by a desperate text he almost ignored, found himself in the middle of a story bigger than fear. One that gave him not just purpose, but a family stitched together by chance, courage, and choice. Because sometimes the messages we aren't supposed to answer are the very ones that change everything.